This was meant for you, not because the world is watching, not because headlines are loud, but because somewhere in the quiet space where hope and longing meet, a message takes shape and finds its way to you. Imagine this as fiction, as a whispered story carried on the edge of possibility, a voice softened by distance yet certain in intention. In this imagined moment, it is Elon Musk who speaks, not the figure of news and numbers, but a presence stripped of noise, speaking only from the place where resolve becomes tenderness. My love, I'm coming. Not in haste, not with chaos, but with purpose. I'm coming because there are journeys that are not measured in miles or rockets or years, but in the courage it takes to move towards someone when the world expects you to keep moving away. I know what it is to chase the future, to bend time with ambition, to outrun doubt with vision. But even the fastest paths eventually lead back to one simple truth: some destinations matter because of who is waiting there. I see you in this story as someone who has waited without freezing, who has grown without hardening. You have lived your life while holding a quiet space open, not for fantasy, but for meaning. That kind of patience is rare. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for reward. It simply remains, steady and dignified, even when loneliness tries to convince you that waiting is weakness. It isn't. It is strength that knows its own worth. When I say I'm coming, I don't mean to rescue you, because you are not broken. I don't mean to complete you, because you are already whole. I mean I'm coming to meet you where you are, to stand beside you and say, I see what you've carried, and I respect it. There is a difference between admiration from afar and recognition up close. This imagined voice chooses recognition. You may wonder why someone who seems to have everything would speak so softly, so personally. The truth in this fictional belief is simple: achievement does not replace connection. Success can fill calendars and bank accounts, but it cannot sit with you in silence and understand your pauses. It cannot look at you and know when you're tired even though you're still smiling. Only presence can do that. Only love, or something that wants to become love, can do that. I'm coming because I'm tired of rooms full of people where no one truly listens. I'm coming because intelligence means nothing if it can't feel, and innovation feels empty when it isn't shared. I'm coming because there is a kind of brilliance in you that doesn't need to be proven. It simply exists, warm and steady, like a light that doesn't flicker when the wind changes. In this story, I imagine telling you that I notice the way you doubt yourself even though you shouldn't. I notice the way you give more than you receive and then wonder why you feel drained. I noticed how you've been strong for so long that you forgot what it feels like to be held emotionally, to let someone else carry the weight for a while. I'm coming not to take over your life, but to offer my shoulder, my attention, my consistency. There is something deeply attractive about someone who doesn't chase attention, who doesn't need applause to feel real. You move quietly, but your presence lingers. You speak thoughtfully, and your words stay. You love carefully, not because you fear love, but because you understand its power. That understanding is magnetic. It pulls this fictional voice toward you more strongly than fame or fortune ever could. I imagine saying to you that I'm not afraid of your depth. Many people are. Depth requires patience. It requires honesty. It requires the willingness to sit with uncomfortable truths instead of escaping into distraction. I've spent a lifetime confronting the impossible, so your complexity doesn't intimidate me. It intrigues me. It invites me closer, my love. I'm coming with openness, not promises carved in stone, but intentions grounded in respect. I'm coming knowing that connection is built slowly, not announced dramatically. I'm coming ready to listen more than I speak, to understand before I explain. In this imagined world, that choice is the most powerful one I make. You may have been hurt before. Of course you have. Anyone who loves deeply risks deeply. That doesn't make you foolish, it makes you brave. I'm coming not to reopen wounds, but to be gentle around them, to show you that not every hand reaches to take. Some reach to steady. Some reach to stay. There is something sacred about the moment when two lives acknowledge each other without illusion. No savior. No pedestal. Just two humans saying, I choose to show up. In this story, that is the moment I'm walking toward. Not the spotlight. Not the applause. You, if you listen closely, you might hear this whisper not as a promise of romance alone, but as a reminder of your own value. Whether or not you believe in the messenger, believe in the message, you are worth being chosen without games. Without confusion, without delay. You are worth someone saying, I'm coming, and meaning emotionally, mentally, intentionally. I imagine telling you that even the future I dream of building needs grounding, and grounding looks like you, calm, thoughtful, real. It looks like conversations that don't rush, like laughter that isn't performative, like silence that feels safe instead of awkward. That kind of connection doesn't trend, but it lasts, so in this fictional whisper, let the words settle gently. Let them remind you that attraction is not always loud, that love is not always dramatic, that sometimes the most powerful declaration is simply movement toward you. My love. I'm coming. And even if this is only a story, let it awaken something true inside you, the knowing that you are seen, desired, and deserving of a love that arrives with intention, not excuses. I'm still coming, and in this of the distance between the words and the feeling grows thinner. Not because time suddenly accelerates, but because intention has weight, and it pulls two inner worlds closer long before bodies meet. In this imagined voice, I want you to feel the steadiness of that pull, the calm certainty that doesn't rush because it doesn't fear losing its way. You should know something about this whisper. It isn't born from impulse. It comes from long nights of thinking, from moments when even the brightest ideas fall quiet and the mind finally asks what truly matters. In those moments, the noise of achievement fades, and what remains is the truth that connection is not a distraction from purpose, it is the reason purpose exists at all. That's when the thought of you appears, not demanding attention, simply present, like a thought that feels like home. I imagine telling you that I don't idealize you. I don't need to. What draws me is not perfection but authenticity. The way you continue even when you're unsure. The way you feel deeply but don't always speak it aloud. The way your strength is gentle, never loud, never cruel. You don't need to be larger than life. You are already real, and real is rare. As I move closer in this story, I become more aware of what I'm bringing with me. Not just admiration, but vulnerability. Not just confidence, but questions. I'm coming with the willingness to be known, not just recognized. That may sound simple, but it's one of the hardest things for anyone who lives behind roles and expectations. To step out of that and say, "This is me," without armor, requires trust. You inspire that trust. There is a moment I imagine, quiet and unannounced, where we sit across from each other without needing to impress. No rehearsed lines. No performance. Just presence. In that moment, words slow down because they don't need to fill space. Understanding does the work instead. I imagine noticing how you listen, not just to respond, but to truly hear. That kind of attention changes people. It would change me. I'm coming because I believe in building things that last, and the strongest structures are built on honesty. I wouldn't promise you ease, but I would promise you clarity. I wouldn't promise perfection, but I would promise effort. Love, in this imagined truth, is not a feeling you fall into and hope survives. It's a choice you make repeatedly, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it asks you to grow. You might be wondering what place you have in a world that seems so fast, so demanding, so obsessed with the next big thing. In this story, you are not competing with anything. You are not an accessory to ambition. You are the place where ambition learns to rest without disappearing. You are the reminder that progress without humanity is hollow. I imagine reaching a point where I say, softly but clearly, that I respect your boundaries. That I don't want to rush your trust or borrow your heart before earning it. Attraction doesn't need pressure. It deepens in safety. And safety comes from consistency, from words that align with actions, from showing up when it's easier not to. That's how I'm coming, aligned, not dramatic. There is something else I want you to hear in this continuation. You are not late. Your life is not behind. You haven't missed your moment. Everything you've lived, every disappointment, every delay, has shaped your discernment. You don't love blindly anymore. And that's not cynicism, it's wisdom. I'm not offended by that. I honor it. In this imagined closeness, I notice your silence and don't rush to fill it. I notice your doubts and don't try to erase them with empty reassurance. Instead, I sit with them, because being seen in your uncertainty is more intimate than being praised in your strength. You don't need someone who only loves the easy parts of you. You deserve someone who understands the complicated ones, my love. I'm coming with patience. Not the passive kind, but the active kind that chooses you again and again without needing constant. I'm closer now in this imagined telling, not because the world shifted, but because understanding did. There is a subtle moment when intention turns into movement, when thoughts stop circling and finally choose direction. That's where this part of the story lives. In that space where certainty isn't loud, but it's undeniable. If I could speak to you without any distance at all, I would tell you that what draws me isn't just who you are when things are calm. It's who you've been when things were uncertain. I sense the nights you didn't know how everything would work out but still woke up and tried again. I sense the disappointments you didn't dramatize, the tears you wiped away quietly so the world wouldn't mistake your sensitivity for weakness. That kind of resilience doesn't shout. It hums. And once you hear it, you can't forget the sound. I'm coming with an awareness that you are not asking to be saved. You've learned how to stand on your own, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of pride, often out of love for yourself. I respect that. I don't want to replace your strength, I want to stand beside it. There's a difference between someone who needs you and someone who chooses you. In this story, choice is everything. There's a moment I imagine where I notice how careful you are with your heart now. Not closed, just selective. You don't give access to just anyone anymore, and you shouldn't. You've learned that connection without consistency is just noise. And affection without respect is empty. That wisdom didn't come free. It came from experience. I see that, and instead of being frustrated by it, I slow down for it. I would tell you that I'm not afraid of your questions. Ask them. Ask all of them. Curiosity is not doubt, it's intelligence protecting itself. I'm coming ready to answer with honesty, even when honesty isn't flattering. Especially then. Trust doesn't grow from perfection. It grows from transparency. In this part of the story, attraction deepens not through grand gestures, but through small recognitions. The way I'd notice when your energy shifts, when something is bothering you even if you say you're fine. The way you'd notice when my mind drifts too far ahead and gently bring me back to the present. That mutual awareness is where intimacy actually lives. You might think that someone who lives in visions of the future wouldn't value stillness, but that isn't true. Stillness is where clarity is born. And you feel like stillness, not emptiness, but grounding. Like a place where the noise finally settles and something real can be heard. That's why I'm drawn forward, not because you pull, but because you don't. I imagine telling you that I don't expect you to be endlessly strong. You don't have to hold it together all the time. There is space here for your tiredness, your uncertainty, your moments of doubt. You don't lose your value when you rest. You don't lose your worth when you need reassurance. You become more human, and that only deepens connection. As I come closer, I also bring accountability. Words mean nothing if they aren't followed by presence. So in this story, I show up. Not only when it's convenient. Not only when things are exciting. I show up in the ordinary moments too, because that's where real relationships live. Anyone can be impressive in highlights. Consistency reveals character. There is something deeply attractive about the way you don't rush love. You let it reveal itself. You let people show you who they are instead of believing who they say they'll be. That patience is not fear, it's self-respect. And self-respect invites the same in return. I imagine a moment where I say your name quietly. Not to get your attention, but because saying it feels grounding. Names carry energy when spoken with intention. In that moment, you would feel seen without being examined, valued without being evaluated. That's the kind of closeness this story leans toward, my love. I'm coming with the understanding that you don't need intensity, you need sincerity. You don't need obsession, you need reliability. You don't need to be placed on a pedestal, you need to be met eye to eye. That's how I approach you here, not above, not ahead, but beside. If there's one thing I want this part of the story to give you, it's this reassurance: you are not too much, and you are not hard to love. You simply require depth. And not everyone knows how to swim there. That's not your flaw. That's your filter. As this imagined closeness grows, let yourself feel what it stirs, not attachment to a figure, but recognition of your own standards, your own worth, your own readiness for something that doesn't drain you. This story isn't asking you to wait passively. It's reminding you that what is meant to move toward you will do so without forcing you to shrink. I'm still coming. Not hurried. Not uncertain. Just intentional. And as this part settles into you, remember, the most powerful love stories aren't the ones that rush to the ending. They're the ones that honor every step it takes to arrive. When you're ready, we can continue again. Some closeness needs space between words to fully land. I'm even closer now, not in distance but in tone, the way a voice lowers when it no longer needs to persuade. In this part of the story, there's no need to impress you, because what matters has already been understood. The quiet between us feels different, less like waiting, more like arriving. If I could sit with you in this imagined moment, I would tell you that I've learned something important by moving toward you. Speed doesn't equal certainty. I've spent years moving fast, thinking fast, building fast, believing that momentum itself was proof of direction. But some truths only reveal themselves when you slow enough to feel them. You have that kind of rhythm. You don't rush your inner world. You let it speak when it's ready. That patience changes the way everything feels around you. I notice how you don't need constant reassurance, yet you appreciate consistency. You don't ask for promises, but you listen closely for alignment. You watch what people do when no one is applauding. That tells me you value substance over performance. In this story, that awareness draws me nearer than any admiration ever could. There's something else I want to say here, softly, without weight. I'm not coming to disrupt your peace. If anything, I'm coming because you have it. Too many connections mistake chaos for passion. You don't. You understand that calm can be powerful, that safety can be magnetic, that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. That understanding feels like maturity, and maturity is deeply attractive. I imagine a moment where you share something you don't often say out loud, maybe a fear you rarely admit, or a hope you've protected from disappointment. I don't interrupt. I don't try to fix it. I just listen, fully present, because being trusted with someone's inner truth is not a task, it's an honor. In that moment, closeness deepens without needing to be named. As I come closer, I become more aware of what I'm willing to let go of. Ego softens. Defensiveness fades. There's no need to be right when understanding matters more. You have a way of inviting honesty simply by being steady. It makes it easier to tell the truth, even when the truth is unfinished. You might think that someone driven by vision would struggle with emotional nuance, but the opposite can be true. Vision without emotional intelligence collapses under its own weight. You bring balance, not by controlling, but by grounding. You don't pull me away from the future, you anchor it to something human. In this part of the story, I want you to feel how chosen you are, not because of timing, not because of convenience, but because of recognition. I see the way you love, the way you think, the way you hold space. I see how you don't demand attention. Yet you command presence. That combination is rare. It makes moving toward you feel inevitable. There's a quiet promise here, not spoken as a vow but lived as behavior. Showing up. Being honest. Staying curious about each other instead of assuming. Giving room without creating distance. These are not dramatic acts, but they are powerful ones. They build something real, my love. I'm coming with the understanding that love isn't about losing yourself. It's about expanding without fear. I don't want you smaller so I can feel bigger. I want you fully yourself, because that's who drew me in. Anything else would be a betrayal of this connection. If at any point you hesitate, that's okay. Hesitation isn't rejection, it's discernment. I respect that. I won't rush you past your instincts. The right connection doesn't feel like pressure, it feels like permission. Permission to breathe. Permission to be honest. Permission to be human. As this part settles, let it remind you of something essential: you don't have to be extraordinary to be deeply desired. You already are, simply by being real in a world that often rewards pretense. This story isn't trying to elevate someone else, it's reflecting you back to yourself. I'm still coming, but now it feels less like movement and more like alignment. And alignment doesn't announce itself with noise. It arrives quietly and says, "This feels right." When you're ready, we can let the story continue unfolding. Some closeness grows best when it's allowed to deepen without rushing the now that doesn't rush forward anymore. It settles. It exhales. This is the part where nothing needs to be proven, where the whisper no longer tries to reach you because it already has. The coming has become a kind of presence, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just real. If this imagined voice could say one last thing to you, it would be this: I didn't come to change your life by force. I came to meet the life you already built with care. I came because you learned how to stand alone without becoming closed. Because you kept your heart soft without letting it be careless. Because you grew discernment instead of bitterness. That kind of evolution doesn't go unnoticed, even in fiction. Even in quiet stories like this one, in this final moment, I imagine looking at you without expectation. No future to pressure you into. No past to hold against you. Just the present, honest and unguarded. There is something deeply intimate about being seen without being claimed, about being chosen without being trapped. That's the tone of this ending. Not possession. Not fantasy. Recognition. You don't need someone to promise you the universe. You need someone who understands your inner weather, who doesn't disappear when things get complicated, who doesn't love you only when it's easy. In this story, that understanding exists. It doesn't shout. It stays. If I say my love here. It isn't ownership. It's acknowledgement. It's a way of saying, I see the care you put into the way you live, the way you feel, the way you protect what matters. It's respect wrapped in affection, not illusion. I imagine telling you that whatever you choose next, whoever you choose, whatever path you walk, you don't need to shrink your standards to be loved. You don't need to dim your depth to be chosen. The right connection, fictional or real, rises to meet you. It doesn't ask you to step down. This story was never about waiting for someone to arrive and make your life meaningful. It was about reminding you that your life already is meaningful, already attractive, already worthy of intention. The whisper was simply a mirror, reflecting back what you sometimes forget when the world gets loud, so let this end gently. Not with a dramatic goodbye, but with a calm knowing. If something is meant to move toward you, it will do so clearly. It won't confuse you. It won't keep you guessing. It won't ask you to abandon yourself to be loved, and if you carry anything forward from this imagined journey, Let it be this feeling: you are not invisible, you are not too much, and you are not asking for something unreasonable by wanting depth, consistency, and sincerity. That desire is not weakness. It's wisdom. The whisper fades now, not because it failed, but because it did its work. You don't need it anymore. What you need, you already have within you: a steady heart, a clear sense of worth, and the quiet confidence that what aligns with you will find you without force, and that is where the story ends. Not with someone arriving, but with you standing fully in yourself, knowing that you are worthy of a love that comes calmly, speaks honestly, and stays present.